time out. We would like to thank all the people that have joined us this evening and taking time out of their busy schedule. We thank you. My name is Gloria Burt, and I am the Mistress of Ceremony. Our club president is Mary Thompson. She will bring us the greetings, followed by our chaplain, Donna Moore Brown, who will lead us in prayer as well as bring us the collect.
Good evening and welcome. It is with great pleasure that the Grand Rapids Negro Business and Professional Women's Club welcome you to our domestic violence workshop. The discussions shared this evening will educate us on how to provide the necessary tools to abused individuals in an effort to reduce abuse or injury to women, children, and surprisingly, men. So once again, the Grand Rapids Negro Business and Professional Women's Club extend a warm welcome to all of our guests. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies. And good evening to you, Ms. Ward. I recognize you from my job, so I am so happy. Shall we all just still our minds as we pray? Lord, peace be still tonight, Lord. Just let us stop what we're doing, take a deep breath, and exhale. The demands and stresses of life can easily overwhelm any one of us, but they are no match for you, Lord. So I ask you to go before the speaker tonight, go before all our club sisters who are on, Lord. Let us just prepare our minds, hearts and souls to hear the message that you are bringing to us tonight. All these things I ask and pray in your name. Amen.
Amen.
And now I will read our collect. Keep us, O God, from pettiness. Let us be large in thought, in word, and in deed. Let us be done with fault finding and take leave of self-seeking. May we never be hasty in judgment and always generous. Let us take time for all things. Make us grow calm, serene, and gentle. Teach us to put into action our better impulses, straightforward and unafraid. Grant that we may realize it is the little things that create differences, that in the big things of life, we are as one. And may we strive to touch and know the great common human heart of us all. And oh Lord God, let us not forget to be kind. Amen.
Thank you. Next, we will have Dinah Britt, who takes care of our technology, and she will present us with the Zoom etiquette.
Greetings, everyone. I would like to go over the Zoom etiquette. First of all, mute your mics if you are not speaking. Turn your video on if you would like to show your face. Otherwise, stop the video to conceal your face. If you have any questions or comments, please use the chat at the bottom of the screen. Keep the camera at eye level so that your face video image will be centered. If you would like to see everyone on the call tonight, go up into the right corner and choose gallery view. Choose speaker view if you would like to see the active speaker in a larger image. Raise your hand by using the reaction button at the bottom if you would like to if you have a question or a comment. Please keep your device still to minimize any distraction caused by movement. Thank you very much. Enjoy the workshop this evening.
Our video will be Lift Every Voice and Sing. Miss Annie?
It's coming.
Okay.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. Stormy the road we trod, bitter the chase we run, felt in the days when hope unborn had died. Yet with a steady beat and on our weary feet, come to the place for which our parents sighed. We have come over a way that with tears has been watered. We have come treading a path through the blood of the Scion. Now from the gloomy past till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our bright star is fast. God of the weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us the star on the way, thou who hast by thy mind led us into the light, keep us forever in the path we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places of God where we met thee, lest our hearts drunk with the wine of the world we forget thee. Shadowed beneath thy hand, may we forever stand, true to our God, true to our native land.
Dr. Elisa Carter will introduce our speaker for the evening.
It gives me great pleasure to introduce the sound and to present to others our speaker for this evening. Mykal Ward is the Training and Education Manager at Safe Haven Ministries. In this role, Mykal facilitates and supervises prevention-focused education, training, and programming, with a focus on enhancing training offerings for the healthcare, human service, and for-profit sectors. She has taught and mentored students in diverse settings for over 20 years, working with students ranging from middle school through university. She has also supervised and mentored fellow educators with the goal of creating educational environments and experiences informed by best practices that are designed to help students and teachers reach their highest potential as both educators and learners. Mykal uses her background in education to support Safe Haven Ministries' mission and vision that all individuals have a right to a healthy relationship, and believes we absolutely can and will affect positive change through education, empowerment, and community collaboration. Mykal received her formal education at Grand Valley State, including a bachelor's degree in secondary education and a master's degree in educational differentiation. Mykal Ward.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I was just making a note to myself, ladies, I am just super impressed. Everything that I've seen so far, I'm just like, look at this. I love the way that you've introduced the meeting. I love the fact that you went through the etiquette. I took a note. I said, we need to do that when we do our virtual meetings. That would be so helpful. The way that it was done, just so very nice. And I love the song. You saw me over here nodding. I remember singing that song in the choir at Messiah Baptist.
Mhm.
Yes. Okay. Well, that was the introduction to who I am. So I guess I'll probably just go ahead and jump in. My style of presenting is pretty relaxed. I know that the topic matter can be a bit heavy or feel a bit heavy. Today, what we're going to do, and I'll put my slides up in just a moment, but today what we're going to do is to talk mostly just about the way that Safe Haven tries its best to serve, all the different ways that we try to do that. And then at the end, there will be probably quite a bit of time, hopefully, for us to talk a little bit more, maybe even talking a little bit more about what is domestic violence, like what is this pandemic of domestic violence? What is this situation that we're talking about? So the presentation itself is not very heavy on things like definitions or talking through that type of thing. So you will see that. However, while we're going through the presentation, definitely feel free, like we saw in the etiquette, to raise your hand, type in the text box if you have a question, and I'm sure I'll see it pop up, and I'll try my best to answer those questions. I've also got my little paper here that I'll be writing things down as we go. If anybody says something and I say, oh, we're going to get to that, so that I make sure that we do get to that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let's see. Let's see, where is it? Would it be this one? And share sound.
You see it at the bottom?
I think so.
Okay.
I think we got it. Okay. Is everybody able to see my screen?
Yes.
All right. It somehow went to the wrong slide, so let me go back to the beginning. There we go. So as you've already heard, I am the Training and Education Manager at Safe Haven Ministries. I have been at Safe Haven for just under a year, actually. Oh, I see a raised hand. Is that Elisa?
I'm sorry, that was an accident. Please continue.
Oh, okay. That's fine. Okay. Yes, so my background before this, as you also heard, was actually working in the schools. Most of that time I worked with middle schoolers, and absolutely loved it. Just God said, time to move. And I said, okay, where are we going? And this is where I ended up. And I'm loving this opportunity to help people understand domestic violence and the resources that are available. So this is our beautiful building. I don't know if any of you are aware where we're located, but it is directly, the corner is actually Birchcrest and now I can't think of the name of the street, Saginaw. But nobody really knows what that is when I say that. So if you go out a bit, we are closest to Breton and 28th Street. We're tucked right back behind Pietro's, if you know where Pietro's restaurant is, and we're in the midst of neighborhoods, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Our mission is to prevent and end relationship abuse and exploitation, following Christ's example and motivated by the needs of our community. We'll talk a little bit later about connecting with us, but as you see here, we are available 24/7 for calls, and you can text that same phone number. You can also chat online at www.shmgr.org. This is actually about a 3.5-minute video that I think does a really good job of introducing who we are and what we do. So hopefully I'll be able to play that successfully, and then afterwards we'll continue. Oops, we'll see. Try that again. There it is.
So when I first got connected with Safe Haven, every day was just about survival at the most basic level. There wasn't space for other things. There wasn't space for growth. It was like barely existing. I think we grow up assuming that what we see in front of us is what there is and that that's normal or healthy. But when you are made aware of what healthy actually looks like, that's a game changer. Safe Haven's impacted my life in a number of ways, but the biggest thing I could say is that they walked with me through the hardest of hard times and led me to this place where now I'm out and thriving and able to help others.
Statistically, we know when you're in any gathering of any size, you're with survivors. We are part of a greater movement of people that want to see the end to violence and abuse and exploitation. We aren't just a crisis response agency, but we are a facilitator and catalyst to hope and the next season for people. And so that means we have a commitment to move people into a season where they're thriving.
We all actually do believe that we can prevent and end domestic violence. You can see it in the volunteers at the front desk. You can see it in every individual, no matter where they are in the building.
People we bring together around supporting survivors and ending relationship abuse, it's a pretty wide range of folks. And that's something that not everybody can do well in this time.
We really walk alongside people. And so a lot of times what our advocates are doing is providing that consistent emotional support.
It's important that I show up so that they can know that the obstacle that they in right now, the little valley, there is people in the valley with them.
It's being able to bring the survivor voice to the forefront so that it's not just a group of people who people are helping and taking care of, but it's a group of people who have ownership and can tell you what they need.
For Mykal and I as preventionists, we're concerned with the upstream. My work is focused on building an institute focused on prevention for folks in different organizations that could become leaders in their communities and help to join with us to really work to prevent and end domestic violence.
We're in the communities, working directly with people to not only challenge maybe what our society's perceptions are on abuse, but also to give them the tools to continue to pass down that knowledge.
One thing Safe Haven does well is recognizing needs and not being afraid to find the answers. That's one thing that we do very well, is showing up.
I just like showing up for people because my village, they show up for me.
In order to do this work, I think that it requires this radical optimism. You have to believe that our society is capable of this change. We have an obligation to our communities to work together to end violence.
This is a long movement. We are committed to the work we do because the mission is bigger than us. Whenever there is injustice, there's always people who are working together to right that, to bring a new future. And that gives me hope.
Okay. So I'll talk through what the talking points are, and then I'm just going to see if anybody has any questions at this time. What we're going to talk a little bit more about is the Safe Haven Ministries mission and vision. We'll talk about our prevention and educational training and programming, intervention services, and also how to get connected to Safe Haven. Are there any things in particular that anyone is hoping to get out of this brief overview so that I can make sure that we do touch on those things? Feel free to unmute and say those things or to type it in the chat. And I'll just give you a few seconds. Okay. My background in teaching does sometimes cause me to give uncomfortable wait times. If any of you remember teachers sitting there and saying, I'll wait until somebody says something, that's me. So I'll try not to do that too much because it can be uncomfortable. If you do have anything that you'd like to add, please feel free to do that. If you have any particular questions you want to make sure get answered today. I do see one thing here. Do we address mental health issues? In a way, yes, we do. The best way I can answer that is to say that while we actually do not have currently any clinical therapists or counselors, we do have a large staff of what we call advocates, and those advocates will help address all types of concerns and issues and then point out ways to get connected to other services if needed. Since mental health is deeply impacted and can also be an impact to domestic violence, intimate partner violence, it's almost inevitable that it's going to become part of our conversation. And then someone else has also mentioned they'd like to just know more about domestic violence itself. I'm gonna jot both of these things down just so I don't forget to come back to them, because one thing that I also like to do is to just do some follow-up. Like if you all appreciate it, I can go ahead and send out an email maybe tomorrow or Monday with even more information if there's things that we don't end up getting to in this time. So about domestic violence itself, we will talk a little bit more towards the end about ways that we can do additional training. At the end of this call, though, I can probably give you just a little bit more about domestic violence. We do all types of, from an hour to 8 hours of training about domestic violence, the impact that it can have, ways to find out, if you may actually be involved in a situation that's unhealthy and what to do about it, how to respond to people. But a lot of times people are interested in just knowing, like, what is it? How do I know the signs of it happening in my life or someone else's life? Will you touch on how to identify people who may be experiencing domestic violence? I can. How to identify. BV. Okay. That's really helpful, because what that can do for me then is to let me know to not just zoom through, but to not spend entirely too much time, so that when we get to the Q&A time, we can address more of these things too. Thank you very much for that input. So this basically, and feel free to continue putting things in the chat if you wanted to add something else. This slide is our mission, vision, and values. I just like to point this out to people who are new to Safe Haven so they can understand more of who we are and the things that we stand for. I don't usually read over the whole thing, so I'm just going to tell you a little bit of it. We do value the inclusion of all survivors through education, empowerment, and community collaboration. We believe that all individuals have a right to a healthy relationship. We are survivor-centered. We value faith, stewardship. We are all about what we call social norms change. By changing attitudes, behaviors, and policies that contribute to relationship abuse, we can prevent violence before it even begins. So that's a big key in what we do for the prevention side of things. We value equity and belonging, excellence. Systems change is important, difficult, but important. And we also value partnership and safety. So we're going to spend just a little bit of time talking about prevention and education. That is the part of the team that I am on. I do not have a background in social work or advocacy of any kind. So this is the part that I kind of thrive in, this piece of the work that we do. Prevention programming through Safe Haven. This little icon that you see on the slide is talking about all the things that we do around systems change, trying to change systems, trying to change the world a little bit at a time through training and education, assessing the needs in the community and then addressing those needs, and then policy and protocol support. So we might be working with an organization or a school who realizes that they might need to tighten up the way that they're handling certain things. Like maybe they need to look at the way they're doing their sexual education. Maybe they need to look at the way things are happening in their suspension rates and things like that. Just, we can sometimes help people to walk through the processes that they already have in place and to look for key areas that may actually be, what's the word? I'm thinking of like places where things slip through, basically, places where things slip through the cracks. So what we do in prevention, we have 3 main areas. There are youth violence prevention, community and workplace training, and then the work that we do with faith organizations and church certification. I'm going to talk a little bit about each of those on the next coming up slides. So social norms change is at the heart of all the prevention work that we do. This is not meant to make anybody feel like, yes, I already know this, but the bottom part of this is what is really important. So to understand what we do, we have to understand that social norms are the values, beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors that are shared by a group of people. They're those social norms that are often unspoken understandings for how people behave and how they interact. Those norms often lay the foundation for the perpetration of domestic and sexual violence. And it may not seem like it until we talk about some of them, like how many things that are actually just damaging and harmful because we've begun to believe that they are the norm. By changing these attitudes, behaviors, and policies that contribute to abuse, that's how we can begin to prevent violence before it even does start. And these are some of the programs that we do. This is actually one of the programs that I supervise, the youth violence prevention programming. Because youth violence is connected to other forms of violence, including teen dating, violence, and bullying, we believe that working with youth, schools, parents, and other community members, we can also prevent youth violence. There's a lot that we do in the schools. We have people who go to the schools and do actual training and curriculum with students. There's also a person who goes into the schools and teaches the teachers how to do that curriculum with the students. And there's like a number of other ways that we interact with schools. The Young Leaders Against Violence program is a local safe haven youth-led coalition that's focused on dating and sexual abuse awareness and prevention. They meet basically every week. Some weeks they are off, but they meet almost every week, some in person and some virtually. They are 9th through 12th grade students from Kent County area that have this common interest in eliminating violence from the community. The Jerry program, and this is, again, we're just going through all the different things that we do on prevention. So it's going kind of quickly. And if you have any questions, we'll have a minute in just a minute to ask questions. So the Grow, Engage, Read, Imagine program is yet another way that we look at changing social norms using books. So we start with babies, like little babies, and the books that they read all the way through high school. And we've picked out some books that are very particular. They have themes like strong relationships, healthy boundaries, how to create consent, and how to, make sure people are adhering to your boundaries. There's also things about just nonviolent conflict resolution, all types of topics that are in a lot of books that we read all the time. But what we did is we chose about 43 books, and we very carefully looked through them to see that they had the themes that we believe are also very important to changing these social norms. And we also created some resources to go along with those books so that people can have these important conversations about these topics. And then the last thing for prevention, and there's a bit more, but this is the last one I'm going to focus on for today, is a program that is called Creating a Safe Haven. It's a certification program that's designed to help communities receive comprehensive domestic violence and human trafficking training, all while developing plans for responding to domestic violence or human trafficking that may be happening in the congregation, or maybe it's happening in the community or in the families, or maybe it's in the workplaces. This certification process will equip leadership with the tools they need to work with individuals or families that are facing crisis. So here's a time that we can ask some questions specifically about the things I've just shared about prevention. And then we're going to get into talking more about what we do to intervene. So feel free to unmute yourself or to type it in the chat. If you have any questions.
Where do you get your clients? Do people just call you, or do you work with an agency who refer them to you? Or
we actually get our clients a number of ways, and that's going to come up in some of what we're going to talk about with the intervention. A lot of times clients are referred to us because of a friend of theirs or someone who they know, maybe at work, maybe at church, in the community, that happens to know about us. Because unfortunately, and part of why I love my job is, but people don't all know what Safe Haven does, and they may not even know that Safe Haven exists. So a person who's experiencing abuse or dealing with any type of unhealthy relationship situation that's unsafe, they may not know to contact us themselves. So it's oftentimes someone is referred. Somebody will say, hey, have you heard about Safe Haven? But sometimes it is also through other organizations where someone is working with them and then they refer us. And that happens the other way too, where someone may be talking with us, and quite frequently we're referring people out to other locations and saying, hey, you should get in touch with Arbor Circle or the YWCA or Salvation, like whoever it might be. We have a whole team of people who deal with housing situations in particular. And we've got a wonderful set of connections of people who we refer to, they refer to us, and it's just like a wonderful two-way street. However, one of my goals is to just continue growing partnerships also. Let's go ahead and I'll go ahead and go into the more talking about intervention services. So prevention is relatively new in domestic violence and human trafficking services and organizations. Intervention is where everything kind of started. So trauma and abuse is at the center of all the things that we do intervention-wise. Like the prevention, you saw a similar image to this, and in the center it said systems change. For prevention, what we were trying to do is keep things from happening in the first place. Or if someone was experiencing something, we want to help them to see what they're experiencing so that they will then know what to do. Intervention is, okay, something is already happening. There's a trauma that's already taking place. There's a crisis that's already happening. And the different ways that we do work with that is through domestic violence, trauma care, sex trafficking, and labor trafficking. Those are all the clients that we serve and their families. So at the bottom of this image, you will also see that we provide children's services, youth and adolescent services, and adult services. So if we look at this the way it is, the main people we actually are serving is at the far right, the adult services. The adults are the ones who generally are going to come to us with their younger children. We do provide services for 14 years up also. There's a little bit of a stipulation for that. And the children's services is the services that are happening in tangent with the adult services. If an adult comes in for service, we have a children's center for the children to be at with caregivers who are there to take care of them also. And we do have some specific children's programming that goes on during our adult support groups as well. So this is also an explanation, kind of going along with the last slide. What we offer is on the right. The way that we offer those things is on the left. So I'll start from the right. We do case management, advocacy concerning legal cares, housing, resources, connection, crisis support, mobile advocacy, support groups. Mobile advocacy means that somebody will come out into the community to meet someone in a safe and convenient location, and they don't have to find a way to come into our center. We also do safety planning, and we help people with the personal protective order filing process and all the information that goes into that. Over on the left side of the arrow, the emergency safe shelter, the safe transitions, transitional housing, and non-residential services are all ways to get any of those services. Some people have the misunderstanding that you have to actually be living at Safe Haven in our shelter to receive services, and that's not the case. Anybody can contact us at any time or walk in to receive services. They don't have to be staying there. These are just some images that show what the shelter looks like. It is a beautiful building that was just created in 2019, a little bit before the pandemic struck. We have 14 rooms, and each room is similar to the one that you see here. And you're usually able to get 3 to 4 people per room. We do have some rooms that are meant for single occupancy, and we do have adjoining rooms that can be create space for larger families. So they don't have to be separated from each other. Each room does have its own private restroom. And then on the left side, you're seeing what's like the lobby area and that large, beautiful kitchen that they are able to use at their leisure. That I love this refrigerator, by the way. We also have 4 other refrigerators and a pantry that's accessible to the whole shelter that's not seen here. And this is about eligibility. Some people, unfortunately, because we do unfortunately wind up being full quite frequently, they will contact us and they won't actually be eligible for services, or we will be too full. These are the things that we look at when we're considering eligibility. Individuals experiencing intimate partner violence or human trafficking, people who are in immediate danger. We look at lethality factors, like if it's so dangerous, unfortunately for them, that they would be unsafe to stay home and they are in risk of losing their life. That's definitely a key eligibility factor as well. We advocate for shelter in other places, including hotels, if it comes down to it, if we don't have room. We even are sometimes able to use grant funding to help someone relocate. Say they have some place that's in a different city that they are able to go to, but they don't know how to get there. They can't get there, but they know if they do get there, that they would be safe. We can help with that. Bus tickets, plane tickets, it's not common, but when it does happen, we're able to advocate for it. And then there's also safety planning. This is our safe transitions, which is super new within the last year. We do have 3 homes. 2 of them are for youth, age 18 to 24. And then this one actually is the home that is created for, I believe there is room for 6 families in this home. It has been created to look almost like apartments on the inside now. And that is available for people who have left Safe Haven, but are not able to currently find a permanent home. They're able to stay in safe transitions for up to, I don't want to misspeak, but I want to say it's up to 2 years. I could be incorrect about that. I know that the rate of rent is super low. They keep things economic friendly, and they do work with individuals who are in safe transitions to help them with the process of getting jobs if they need to, or finding homes. So that is that information. And now here's what some of us were asking about too. And I'm also conscious of the time and realizing that I probably am almost over, almost over the time that I was supposed to speak. So this information is just talking about ways to get relationship abuse help. All the different ways you can get in touch with Safe Haven for individual support, emergency safe shelter, safety planning, support groups, and you can also do web or text chatting. You can call 24/7. You can walk in from 8 till 5 with no appointment needed. You can chat 24/7 on our website or use the phone number. Once you do reach us, we will do an assessment. It's just a conversation. It's not like a checklist. We're looking to see what support you need. And then you'll talk with an advocate, whether it's over the phone or whether it's in person. We are 100% free. We do not require any identification. It's very low barrier. confidential. We also have services available in preferred languages, and we are a safe space for everyone. And this is basically the end. These are some ways that you can get a hold of us. You can schedule a tour. We love to show people around. It gives people a better idea of our services, and it also helps with making what we call a warm referral. A warm referral basically means you can tell someone, yes, I have been there, or yes, I talked to so-and-so. It's a great place. They're very friendly. And then they don't have to just look at a business card and wonder if it's an okay place to go to. We do domestic violence seminar every other month. There's one coming up in March. You can also schedule a training for your organization or your workplace. And those are all different ways to get connected. This right here is just talking about the wish list, which I believe you guys were already aware of. The wish list is another way people have chosen to support the shelter. We do have a specific wish list at Christmas time and then beginning of the school year, but there's always a wish list on Amazon. And that's the end of it all. If you have time, if you're able to, please do scan and do the survey. It really is just seeing if you have any other questions that weren't answered, and it's also giving us a chance to know if you were able to learn a few things that you didn't know. But if there's still time, I would love to answer any questions. I see there's a raised hand. Is that DJ Moore?
Yes, that's me.
Hi.
So, hi. I have a couple questions. I'm going to try to lump them all into one, so to speak.
Yes.
So I have a couple questions regarding safety and security, as far as, is there a security guard there 24/7? And is there in and out time? How does that work with, let's say, women who have jobs? And how is the handoff made? Like, is it a referral process? Do the police bring them in? Is there a social worker involved? Is there a check-in time? And I'll stop there.
Okay. I want to first say, I can talk forever about this stuff. So please, someone let me know if I'm if I'm going too far over time, but I would be happy to answer these questions. I will not be offended if somebody says, okay, wait, is this too much time? Okay. So safety and security, I'm actually going to come to that one at the end because it's a little bit complex to answer. The in and out time and the handoff is a pretty simple answer. There is no curfew. There's no in and out time. Once someone is a resident at Safe Haven, they have the right to come and go. There is someone there 24 hours. There is usually 1 or 2 shelter assistants that are in the building overnight. And we also have protocols in place in case anything were to happen. It is actually, that's part of the other question. I'll come back to it. So there is no curfew. There is a gated entry where they're safe to park overnight. There's no way to see who's there, to see what cars are there. And they have to use, there's a buzzer system and the shelter assistants buzz people in and out. Same case at the entryway. It's when I first got my job there, I was like, dang, okay, it's kind of hard to get in, But once I started working there, I realized the flow of it. There's 2 different doors coming in. One of the doors is open to get into the vestibule to then request entry into the main building if you don't have a key card. So there's someone sitting there to let you in during the day. And in the evening, you would just go to the other door and someone would let you in the other door. So that's a lot to say that, yes, there is security at the doors as far as getting in and out. And then the handoff, there's a lot of different ways that somebody might wind up getting there. They may drive themselves there. They may take the bus. They may have a friend bring them. They may have a social worker who brings them. There's a numerous ways, family members, ride shares, whatever way it works, they would have probably spoken with us ahead of time. They would have set up an appointment for a time to come in. And then similar when it's time to go, we do an assessment, safety planning, making sure that everything is safe for them to leave, to go wherever they have planned to go. And we assist them in that move. even with coming down to helping them with rental vehicles if they need to for moving in and moving out. So yeah, that's all part of what we are funded to do. And then the other piece of your question was about safety and security in general, about security. The location is intentionally right out there for you. It's not hidden on purpose so that people, they used to have buildings that were very exclusive, very kind of just like no one knew what it was, but it actually winds up that the way that it is situated where it is, it's way less likely that anyone is going to feel comfortable having the audacity to just in broad neighborhood come out and do something. With that being said, there are lots of protocols in place for anything that even seems to be off or suspicious. Since I've been there, there's been maybe a couple of times where we've been saying, okay, we need to be careful of this particular situation. And then that situation is taken care of. Dealing with who we're dealing with, there's always the possibility that someone's going to feel the need to assert themselves. Everyone is highly trained, and we are partnered with the police. So I don't know if that's a complete answer to your question.
Are your transitional houses located near there, or are they all over the city?
They are not near, they are in the heart of the city. We cannot disclose their location, of course, but one is directly across the street from the church that bought the building, that bought this. There's a church whose home they gave to us. So that's one of the homes that people are in. And the other one is on another side of town. All these homes are, they are secured in a way that if someone knew what it was, they might be like, oh, okay, I see now. But if you went past any of the homes right now, you wouldn't even know how hard it was to get into them because they're made to be the way that they're made for this purpose. However,
have you seen an increase in your residents, the number of residents during the pandemic? And what is your capacity?
Our capacity is 64. That would be including families. During pandemic, there wasn't necessarily an increase in residents. There was definitely an increase in calls. There was a lot more situations of people not knowing what to do because they're now, of course, stuck with a person who they would have been able to get some type of respite from. And there were also situations of people who, all types of things are triggered by the pandemic itself that exacerbated some situations that had been bad that got worse. Coming out of pandemic, we are still seeing that people are having a difficult time recuperating, if that's even a good word for it, with the trauma of being cooped up with a person that they needed so very badly to not be cooped up with. Yeah. I want to make sure that I do, if there's still time, I want to make sure that I do answer a couple of questions about domestic violence. One thing that I want to point out is something that we call the power and control wheel. Domestic violence is always about power and control. It is always about one partner feeling fear of the other partner. And it is never caused by substance use or mental illness. However, it can be made much worse if an abusive person also happens to use or abuse alcohol or other substances. So what we talk about is the various different ways that someone may be exerting power and control over someone in an effort to put that fear into them and keep them afraid for their lives. That is one of the things we talk greatly about in our general domestic violence training. And the ways that we provide support are usually making sure that we listen to a person who has any belief that they are in something that's unsafe, that they're dealing with something unsafe, unhealthy, or abusive, and that we are able to hopefully point them in the direction of resources and be there for them, help them to plan for their safety, help them to make some choices, and then just continue to check in.
Again, if you have a moment, if you could just quickly touch base on how we could identify someone, like what ways or signs we could look for.
Yeah. I would say first thing I need to say is that it's really difficult. It's really difficult to specifically say that if you see this, and this, then they probably are experiencing it. And I know that we are aware that the list that I'm going to give is not an exhaustive list. But one thing we always want to point out is you can usually trust your gut. You can usually see when something has changed immensely in a person's behavior and you begin to see little signs. Maybe their working has changed, the way that they work. Maybe they are, there's physical signs you can see in physical abuse, definitely. There's also some signs you can see of someone seeming to be constantly ill, or someone seeming always tired and they didn't used to be, and there's no other reason you can think of that they'd be feeling like that. But sometimes it's just someone becoming very detached, someone who begins to make excuses for the person who they are with and saying, oh, it's not that bad. Or one thing that we talk a lot about also is psychological abuse, and also emotional abuse, different spiritual abuse, different ways that a person can begin to make someone else begin to feel like they don't know what's going on. We used to call that crazy making. We don't say that anymore for various reasons, but it's tilting someone off their axis and making them not able to trust themselves. I've heard people describe it as someone who used to have joy. You just don't see that joy anymore in them. They start declining invitations that they normally would have accepted. They may act differently when they're around their partner. And oftentimes people who are closest to someone are the ones who are going to notice those types of changes. If it's someone who you're not all that close with, it's more just, I would have to say, trying to give like the best. I would have to say that if it's someone who you're not all that close with, but you interact with them quite frequently, it's probably going to be just in small changes in their behavior, especially if you know they've got a new relationship. If you do notice any of those signs, and I'll happily share the power and control wheel also. I will send that out to Elisa. It gives examples of several things that I've said and more. But what I would say is, if you notice any of those things, the key is to if you feel comfortable, and hopefully you would, to just nudge that person. Hey, how you doing? It seems like something's bothering you. When we talk about this particular thing, it seems to upset you. Or when we talk about your relationship, it seems to upset you. Is everything okay? And if they say, no, I'm fine, let them be fine, let it be. But at least they know that you see them. And you can never understand how much it means to someone who feels unseen and abused to have someone see them. They begin to recognize something is wrong. And then maybe a week or two later, you can check in with them again. How's it going? You doing any better? I mean, like, no, don't try to be a detective. Don't try and solve their problem or become an advocate, but just letting someone know that you're there for them is one of the biggest things that you can do. And then pointing out resources that are available to them.
Are men a part of this program also? Do they seek safe haven as well?
I'm sorry, who?
Are men, males?
Yes, actually, yes. There are men in all types of relationships who also have become clients at Safe Haven, or who contact us through the hotline or chat, whether they are in a straight or non-straight relationship, whatever it happens to be. And one thing that when we talk about power and control, and we look at all the different examples of power and control tactics, people start realizing how many women actually are perpetrators of abuse in the way that they handle relationships. And men, unfortunately, aren't as comfortable coming forward and admitting that something like that is happening to them. They just try to figure it out on their own.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about having families there. Do you provide transportation for the students that are there to school or to doctor office or whatever, visits or whatever?
Yeah, there's a couple of ways that that works. One is that we do have shelter vehicles that our shelter assistants and advocates use, that they can use to help people get where they need to go. They can drive people to the store, they can drive people to appointments. As far as schools, a lot of school buses will actually directly come, or they may have a separate vehicle that will come. If not, we can also help people get to their schools. Almost every student that has been, since as far as I know, again, I don't do advocacy, so I'm not as privy to the things that are happening in the shelter side, but students continue their lives.
Okay.
Just like the adults do. They continue going to work if it's safe to do so. If it's not safe, that's a whole other thing. But if it is safe to do so, they continue.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I just thinking there seems to be, I was just wondering if it was more. I know somebody asked that question, but you read so much now in the paper, murder, suicides, you know, where the whole family is gone. It's just, it's more than we used to hear.
Yes.
So is it the mental or is it part of the domestic abuse?
I think that a lot of it is, and this is honestly, this is more speculation. This is not me quoting from research or anything. What we have noticed is a couple of things. Some people are just fed up. They've begun to become more educated. Sometimes we'll do a training and then we'll do another training with the same group of people. And then we'll find in that very audience, there's 5 people who did not realize that they were experiencing domestic violence or relationship abuse until we pointed things out. So people are just becoming more aware also. And once they are aware, they're saying, oh, let's do something about this. So that's what's causing it to be reported more, I believe, in some cases, is just having more information. There's also, life has been doing some interesting things over the past several years. And the way people are responding to it has shown a lot of folks limits. I'll say that. Whereas there's people who may have been finding other ways to cope, but now they're choosing to cope with violence, unfortunately. And these are, once again, these are just speculative thoughts. There's also in social media now way more ability for us to hear about things that were probably happening all along, unfortunately. So yeah. It's a very big problem, and it's part of what really excites me about the work that I do. My own personal background is what led me towards Safe Haven, because there was a time when I would have needed the help Safe Haven offers, and I wasn't aware. I wasn't aware that I could have received the help that Safe Haven offers. And so it's one of my personal missions to just continue letting people know, like, first of all, find out what's going on. Second of all, once you know what's going on, this is where you can get help. Not just at Safe Haven, but look in the community and find the places where you can get help, because help does exist. And people who are experiencing violence often don't realize that help is out there. So I'm sorry I took so much time. I hope it was okay.
Very good, very good.
Okay. I noticed this month specifically is Teen Violence Month. So I'm wondering, are you seeing more teen violence or not in their relationships?
Unfortunately, yes. Unfortunately. I think that a part of what's causing the uptick in teen violence is actually just the social norms that teens are experiencing right now. all the technology. A lot of things start with the way that relationships begin, because relationships have begun in what we would consider unhealthy ways that these teens don't even realize necessarily how unhealthy it is. We talk about toxic relationships and everything like that. And some people say it kind of just like throw out the word, but when you really look at what toxic relationships are, unfortunately, because of the way that teens are currently interacting with each other, it's like a breeding ground for these toxic relationships. And I think that because of the way that those relationships are formed, it is also creating that ground for the possibility of abuse. That's just one theory, that's one piece of the pie. But in the conversations that we've had with the teens that we work with and that we speak with, sometimes the things we hear about relationships and the way they are now, it just amazes me and blows my mind. And I'm thankful that I'm not a teen right now. My daughter, she's 15, and I just think, Lord, woo, help us to continue to be educated so that we can make wise choices and stay safe. I want to put my email in the chat so anybody can copy paste it if they want to, because you all are being super gracious, but I am aware of the time. I'm fine because I'm up till midnight every night, even if I don't want to be. But I just always am. It's just the way I'm a night owl. So I don't want to take any more of your time unless I have the freedom to do so. I would definitely answer more questions, but I want to make sure you have my email address so that you can shoot me questions if you want to. And if I don't have the answer, I know someone will be able to help me find the answer, and I'll get those back to you.
And I already did your survey.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, I've completed that as well.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Sometimes we don't do a survey for this type of presentation because depending on how it goes, we usually only have time to just go over what services we offer. And our survey usually asks questions about what they learned about domestic violence and that type of thing. And we didn't do too much of that. But I said, let me still do a survey because I love to hear feedback. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you all.
Well, thank you so much, Mykal. We have really enjoyed your presentation this evening. And if there's no more, are there any more questions? No more questions? Okay. Well, we will now have Mary Thompson. She will do our presentation and closing remarks.
Mykal, we want to just thank you. The presentation was excellent. Thank you. At this time, we would like to read a certificate of appreciation. This certificate is awarded to Mykal Ward in appreciation for presenting overview of domestic violence and intimate partner violence. This award is presented by the Grand Rapids Club of the National Association of Negro Business and Professional Women's Club Incorporated for Domestic Violence Month 2023, presented on February 9th, 2023, Mary Thompson and Grand Rapids Club. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That is beautiful. Thank you so much.
This will be forwarded to you via mail, or it might be delivered by Dr. Carter.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So thank everybody for your attendance today. And we hope you enjoyed the workshop this evening. And we look forward to you attending our upcoming workshops, which will our first vice president always places on Facebook. Our next workshop, I think it's February
18th.
18th.
Active violence, active shooter, I'm sorry.
Right. So if you would like to join us, please do. Anything else?